if someone said I couldn't do something, you guaranteed that I would do it.
Brian, look, it's always a pleasure whenever I talk to you because you were at the club for so. How long did you work here, by the way?
8 years.
8 years.
8 years.
And we had our talk because I
Yeah, we
think
did.
I was present. Were you at the temporary club too?
No, I wasn't. I came right after that. So I was actually talking to Mike Baumgartner when the temporary club was open, and we were chatting. I knew I was leaving City Club of Tokyo, and he was like, "Yeah."
Everybody didn't know they were leaving. How'd you know you were leaving?
I was one of the guys running it. That's why.
Okay.
So we had a GM that did a runner.
He sure did.
Yeah, it's a shame because we all liked him. And he brought me in knowing he was going to do a runner to run the club in his absence. And he was telling me, he's feeding me all this BS. You know, you're gonna be the guy. You're gonna take over as GM. So I was kind of a de facto assistant GM, but my title was like club manager or some BS like that. He said, "Yeah, I'm gonna go on vacation. I'm gonna be in Machu Picchu." And it's a whole long story. He was gonna be there. He even talked to the Peruvian ambassador about it, and he gave him some of his Machu Picchu alcohol that he had, and made this big story up. I'm gonna be there for 3 weeks, almost a month, and then I'm coming back. And I'm gonna go to China right away, and then I'll be in I'll be in Australia for a bit. Never went to Machu Picchu. He tried to Australia. He went to Thailand for a week.
Did he caught for any of this?
They caught him, but he was never prosecuted because he left the country. There's no extradition for what he did. They couldn't prove it.
You know that?
It was probably about $40,000. It wasn't
so
a lot.
much?
Yeah, it was in between 20 and
It was
40.
bigger than that.
Nah, it wasn't that much. And this is what he did. He didn't steal any money directly. What he did was, so he went to Machu Picchu. He never went to Machu Picchu. He went to Thailand. Said he was in a car accident. Said he's in the hospital. He'll be there for a while. Around the same time, he had this email account. I don't know what it was. Let's call it MikeSmith.com or something. At MikeSmith.com or something. And he offered to do some marketing work for us. And that was over 6 months. And it was about 40,000 USD. And we sent him the money.
That's what he did.
That's what he did. And he was in Australia the whole time after that.
I don't know how many people know the true story.
Not many. And I know fragments of it. I know a lot of it because I was involved with it.
Okay.
The new guy came in. His name was Willem Penterman, a Dutchman.
He came in after he did the runner.
Yeah, after he did the
But
runner.
I thought that's when they went under.
Well, no, after he did the runner, we figured out what happened, and only a few of us knew, and the membership didn't know. So we were trying to pick up the pieces, and I was working with the owner. I was green, so I'm trying to run the club, keep it afloat. And I think they realized that when I told them I wasn't going to fire half the staff like tomorrow, that I was probably not their guy. So they brought in a guy who would. Now, Willem came in, and very nice man, and he told me the way it was in the beginning. He's like, "Look, this is the way it's going to work. This guy brought me in to basically dismantle the club. I'm going to do my best to enjoy my time here. I'm going to do what I need to do. I'm going to try to keep in his good graces. Maybe I'll work for him in the future. Maybe I won't."
How many years did he have how much time did he have to do it?
Months.
Oh,
So I left the club at the end of the year 2008, December 2008, knowing what I was getting out of it. He's like, "Look, you can stay in your apartment." They were paying for my apartment until the end of January, no problem. Then you got to get out because we have to get rid of all the furniture and stuff like that. He said, "We'll pay you until the end of the month." And I didn't know that I could get more. Now, I'd only been there on the books for 3 months, even though I'd stayed longer because I wasn't legal.
How old were you at this time?
I was 34 maybe, 34, yeah. So I came to Japan, I was 33, I believe.
Okay.
33.
First time?
No, that was the first time I lived here.
Okay.
I came here in 2000, sorry, January 1st, 2000 was my first day in Japan. I stayed here, I came here every year for 3 weeks to a month, just for vacation. First time I came here, it was less than $300 round trip, including taxes.
From
the Y2K special from Philadelphia.
From Philadelphia. That's where you reigned.
That's where I
Let's
grew
get
up.
into that. Then we're going to
Sure.
get back into the story, so you can tell us about
I'll tell you anything you want.
about the Central Club.
Sure.
That was called the Central Club.
City Club of Tokyo.
City Club of Tokyo, right by the Canadian Embassy.
Right underneath, yeah.
Right underneath, right. I heard. I'll tell you what I've heard too. But
Sure.
Where were you born? You were born in Philadelphia, you said.
So I'm not Philadelphian I'm actually, so my family's Canadian. Well, my mother's family is Canadian. I'm from Newfoundland.
Okay, let's do it. Okay, come on.
Yeah, I'm from Newfoundland. So St. John's, Newfoundland. My grandparents, I lived with them until I was, 5, 6 years old. My brother was born in 78.
Okay. You're the
Um,
oldest?
I'm the oldest. I was born in 73.
Okay.
My father, whole different bag of worms. He was married before my mom. Has a whole different story.
One time? Or?
Just once, yeah. Yeah, I think a lot of in my father's family, most of the men had been married before, and either they outlived their wives or they divorced.
So where was he from?
He's Philly boy.
Philly boy.
My grandfather, who was German, was the one that went to Philly.
Okay.
My father's family, very German.
Okay.
My mother's family, completely Irish Canadian.
From Newfoundland.
From Newfoundland.
Okay.
We're Newfies, as you say.
All right.
Or Newfoundlanders. My grandparents were completely, fresh off the boat. Wonderful people.
You knew them?
But yeah, I lived with them.
This is on your mother's side?
My mother's side, yeah. They had slight accents, I don't have a Philly accent because of them. My brother does. He says water instead of water. Yeah.
How many years between you and your brother?
Just 5.
Just 5?
Yeah.
Did you grow up close or did you grow up?
We fought a lot. Now he's one of my best friends.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm lucky to have him. He's a good man.
Mom and Dad stayed together?
Mom and Dad stayed together as long as they could. Dad just didn't know what he wanted. I think he had a lot of regrets. My mother blamed him for years. He needed to get to do his thing. Have fun, get out, live his life.
What?
He cheated on her, but it was more. It wasn't. It was something he did to get out of the marriage because he was too. I think he didn't want to hurt her directly, and that was his way of doing it in a way that he could get out.
Are your mother and father still alive?
No, they both died.
Sorry to hear that.
My mother died. I want to say it was 2017, a month to the day after her birthday. My father died 11 months to the day later on her birthday.
But
they're very close.
They weren't married?
They were close. They were still married legally. They never remarried. My mother and father didn't want to remarry. They both said the same thing. I'm married once. I'm not going to do it again.
But your father was married once before.
He was. He married. In fact, I met her a couple years back. Her name was Pat, or is Pat. She's still alive. He married when he was younger. Everyone in my father's side had been gotten in trouble when they were younger. So my father ended up in jail. She stuck with him during that time. He got to a fight, and it was dumb young kid, and ended up in jail for a bit. And she stuck with him, so he married her. Had a kid. I have a stepbrother. Hadn't seen him for 30 years.
How many years difference between you and him?
He's in his mid-50s. I think he's, I want to say 6 or 7, maybe even 8 years older.
Did you guys ever get close at all?
When we were kids, we were kind of close, but he was in a different crowd. He had a different, he grew up in Kensington, Philadelphia, which is a really rough neighborhood. Really bad now. At the time, there's a place called Juniata Park where my parents lived for a bit, and my grandparents actually, the Newfoundlanders lived for a bit as well.
Why were they there? Because of your mother?
Yeah, actually, my mom was the one who bought the house. It's interesting. She bought the house, moved them into it, and I don't know the whole story.
But do you know who was doing? What kind of work were your parents doing?
My father was a mechanic.
Okay.
Had his
Car
own
mechanic?
business. Car mechanic.
Okay.
He'd done more than just cars, but he was actually very good with his hands, and he had done planes, he had done boats, he had done motorcycles, he had done cars.
Anything with an engine?
He was on, I want to say it was Formula One circuit for a very brief time. He was a boxer, semi-pro, as was all the men on my father's family, they all boxed.
Do you look more like your mom or dad?
My dad. My mom was absolutely beautiful woman when she was younger. When she was older as well. My father fell head over heels in love. Met her at a bar in Philadelphia, is my understanding, and they just fell in love. And my father actually saw her at the bar. He was my grandfather and him both bounced. My father was bartender, bouncer. My grandfather was like a cooler, you know.
What's a cooler?
Cooler is the bouncer that takes out the trash. He's the guy who
Okay.
he's the one that doesn't get involved until there's a need to
He
get
has
involved.
to,
Yeah,
okay.
my father had a lot of stories, as did my grandfather and great
Now,
grandfather.
this is Irish background.
The German side. My father's
The
the German
German
side.
side.
Yeah, 100% German. Ashenfelder
Okay.
is
Your mother
very
is the
German.
Irish side.
Their the last name is Costello.
Okay. Because I know in America they had especially in the East Coast, the Irish were more policemen and stuff like
Yeah.
that, right?
It's funny. The policemen in my family are German though. My
Yeah.
grandfather, my uncle, my great uncle was a policeman.
Okay.
Boots. They used to call him Boots.
Boots.
Yeah.
You-
You don't want to know that story.
Okay.
Boots Ashenfelder, Ray. Yeah, the family's a very interesting family. Very blue collar, middle class.
Were you close with mom or dad or both? Or?
Both. My father didn't let a lot of people in. He was a good man and loved him dearly, but he didn't let a lot of people in. He had a tough childhood. His father was hard on him.
When you were growing up in school, why you start to smile? Were you more academic, or do you think you're? This is elementary school first. Were you more academic, or were you more physical or sports minded?
I was kind of both. I was in the middle. I was a bit of a jack of all trades, always have been, but I was very mischievous. I got into a lot of trouble all the time. I didn't listen to teachers. I would get up and walk around. I didn't understand why I had to sit in a desk all the time.
Was your school pretty mixed, or was it pretty much homogenous? Mostly people that were
It
from
was
Germany or whatever.
very homogenous. It was
Very
very,
mixed, okay.
we didn't have, it was, I went to a Catholic school for first and
All
second
boys.
grade. No, it was boys and
Mixed,
girls.
okay.
But everybody looked the same.
Okay.
They all looked kind of like me, I guess. I mean,
Gotcha.
and there may have been some that didn't, but they were, I don't
Yeah.
remember.
Very few, far in between.
Yeah.
Not noticeable because there were so few.
It was Northeast Philadelphia, very,
Homogenous in that
very
respect.
homogenous. Everybody probably spoke the same. A lot of Irish and German mixed.
Did you speak German when you were young?
I did. I did
Okay.
speak a bit of German with my grandfather. I learned basic German.
Okay.
Went to Germany for a bit. I remember pieces of it. I also studied German in high school.
Okay.
I was a better student in high school than I was before.
What about, did you guys call it junior high or middle school?
We called it junior high.
So you had junior high. That's 3 grades? Was it 3 grades? Like
So I went for
would be-
7th and 8th only. So I didn't do well in Catholic school. So I don't know if I was asked to leave or if my mother just decided it was better for me. So I went to a private school I repeated 2nd grade just because they felt I wasn't, it was too early and I wasn't mature enough. So I did 2nd to 6th grade, which was the grade school there. And then there was nothing beyond that for that. It was a friend's school, Quaker school, which was interesting, but it probably didn't help much. But I did learn a lot, and it made me a bit more academic. Some of the teachers were very good. So then I went to a magnet school after that called Masterman, Julia R. Masterman. And then I went to another magnet school called Central High School. It used to be Central High School for boys. Then it became co-ed maybe a year before I joined, so thank God. Central High School, Philadelphia. Joined a lot of teams. I wrestled, ran track.
what
ran
subjects
cross
were you
country.
most interested in when you were in high school?
It was funny. I actually liked German a lot, and I didn't at first because I felt like I was forced to learn grammar, which was German grammar is very, very complicated for an American. And I studied German diligently. Really liked it. Other than that, there wasn't really much I liked. I did like history. I liked my history teacher.
Okay.
English, I did well with just because there were certain things I liked to read. But I was the student that said, okay, we're reading The Count of Monte Cristo, and I would go and read David Copperfield or something. I would read what I wanted to when I wanted to read. I was a terrible student, but at the same time very good at certain things. So like Hamlet, I did very well with. So we had to do extra credit with Hamlet. I remember the teacher, Miss St. John. So I just, she had said she didn't give many A's out. So I was determined to get an A in my first quarter. So I did whatever extra credit was needed. And luckily we did Hamlet. So Hamlet was one of my favorites. So I read Hamlet.
Oh, you read Hamlet?
I read it through. I memorized it for the most part.
Okay.
So we had an extra credit assignment. The extra credit assignment was to memorize. Well, it wasn't extra credit. It was actually something we had to do, but we were graded on it. The extra credit assignment was an additional soliloquy. So you had to memorize one, and it was to be or not to be. Everybody had to memorize it. And then you could pick another. That was for extra credit. So I came in, you'd come in, it was only you at the time. You'd come in, you would say, recite to be or not to be. And she said, did you do extra credit? I said, yes. And I was determined to show this woman up. It was just that if someone said I couldn't do something, you guaranteed that I would do it, right? So she said, well, what did you memorize? I said, pick. Excuse me, Mr. Ashenfelder? I said, pick anyone you want. Any soliloquy you want, I'll do it. She said, you're kidding me. I said, no, you choose. And she said, okay. What was it? A piece of work is man. What a piece of work is man was the one I did. And I memorized it. And I said, yep. And she said, I can't believe it. I said, quiz me. Any other one you want. And she was astounded, but I got an A.
What about sports? Did you have any sport that you particularly liked?
I loved sports. I started wrestling. So I tried every sport. I grew up playing soccer, baseball, and basketball, and hockey, of course. When I went to Central, I tried playing soccer, football, baseball. I just didn't do well with team sports, right? I couldn't listen to the coach or respect the coach if he didn't, elicit my respect. So anyway, I ended up becoming a wrestler. Wrestling is not a team sport at all. And I loved it. And the coach, Carl Flaxman, he was such a good man. And I respected the hell out of him, loved the man. I'd always find people like him. And he coached us. He was a rough coach. He expected discipline and 100%. He said 100% is not good enough. But I loved that. And I was with him for 4 years through high school. And I became captain of the team at the end. And I ran track and field and I ran cross country only to keep in shape for wrestling.
That's what he said he told you needed to do that?
He didn't say that, no.
But you knew you needed
I just wanted to do it because I wanted to be a better wrestler, and I loved it. And then I fell in love with the sports anyway. I ran cross country and it was something competitive. I loved the competition. And I loved pushing my teammates, and it taught me to be somewhat of a leader. And
were you always a year older than everyone?
No. It was the age was about the same.
But outside of your teams, did you get involved in any other activities, like any school council or anything like that?
I did not. I didn't really. I wasn't a joiner other than this. I tried being a joiner with sports, but with wrestling, I really fell in love with it. With track and field, I pole vaulted in high school. And I think I still hold the record at my high school. I was probably the first to go over 13 feet, and the only to ever reach 14. So I think I still hold the record there.
What were your best subjects in high school? Is it German?
Yeah, German and maybe history.
And history, okay.
And maybe English when I wanted to be.
So did you go straight to college after high school?
I did. So it's funny. I actually joined the Air Force. Long story, but yes, I was in the Air Force. I did not.
Did you ever tell me that?
We did. We talked about it briefly.
How long were you in the Air Force?
Just a year. Yeah, I didn't. Once again, I'm not a joiner. That's a long story. And I got out during Clinton when there were a lot of cutbacks, and I said, look, I'm not sure if I'm in the right place. The guy actually literally.
You enlisted. This was enlistment.
So yes, but I enlisted, but I also joined officer training.
Okay, so you went to officer training school, OTS. Okay.
Yes.
That's why. So did you go to Colorado?
I did. I was actually in San Antonio as well.
Lackland.
Yes.
Wait. Why did you go? So what were you planning to do in the Air Force?
I actually wanted to be a pilot, to be honest with you. I didn't.
A fighter pilot, or
yeah,
maybe cargo,
well,
or
just a fighter pilot, of course, but a pilot in general. A friend of mine, I actually applied to the Naval Academy, and this was something I really wanted to do. Now, I got in a fight with my father, this argument, which led me away from the Navy. I had
About the Navy? About
no, I didn't know that my father had been in the Navy.
oh, you,
I didn't know. We never knew. My grandfather had, and probably forced
but how long did he stay in the Navy, your father?
my father he did something to get himself kicked out.
Okay.
I didn't exactly get kicked out, luckily, but I volunteered to leave, but it was during a time where they were begging people to leave because of the cutbacks that Clinton made.
So what did you do after that, when you left the Air Force? Did you go
went
back?
college,
You went to college?
studied. I actually left Penn State and went to Temple University in Philadelphia at one point. Wasn't doing well in school. Actually tried to go back to the Navy at one point. Talked to a recruiter who wanted to set me up. I did really well at the ASVABs, the aptitude test. Did very, very well, top 5% in the ASVABs. And he's like, "You can do anything you want." And I said, "I'd love to be a SEAL." So he put me in touch with some SEALs that I trained with for a little while.
Anyway, so you finished the military. You
Decided-
graduated from college.
Decided I wasn't going to go back. Went back to, so my college was on and off too. That's a 13-year period. Took off from college. I went to a computer school and Chubb Institute, learned how to program. I was going to Penn State. I left. I realized I'm not going to graduate this school. It's not my thing. I'm not going. I can't deal with living on my own and being left to my own vices, especially in a school like this. It's better that I go home and I go to a school like Temple that is commuting back and forth, because this will keep me honest. And I made that.
What were you doing? You just couldn't. You
I would
stay up too late.
I would stay up too late.
Time.
It's a funny thing. I was competing in martial arts at the time. I was training 6 hours a day doing that. I was training every day, and then I moved into a house outside of the dorm, and I trained even more. So I was on a karate team at the time, and I was training, was fighting in tournaments, and all my classes finished on Thursday afternoon, and then I would drive home to go train with the team on Thursday night and Friday night, and then compete on the weekends. And during the week, I'd wake up late, often miss classes. I'd go to my classes sometimes. I'd see some friends sometimes, but then I'd go home, and I had these two stoner roommates. They were really cool, but everything smelled like marijuana in the house. And if you don't sleep on the couch, you get high.
Right.
They would be out, sometimes come back late, or just go to bed early after smoking up. And I would just train. I moved to DC after that. I met a girl at Temple University. I met her. She wasn't a student. She was there with her mother, who was doing Japan Festival. And I was asked to assist just because there was no one else, I guess. There was a dance teacher and the kimono expert, and that was my future fiance's mother. We dated for almost 7 years. The last year we were engaged.
Were you all in Philly?
All in Philly. The last 2 years were in DC. For the most part,
Okay.
it started off in Philadelphia, and I was commuting back and forth to DC. And then I moved to DC for her. Her visa ended. She came back to Japan. Got a job at the ACCJ, as membership manager.
You came here because of her.
I did.
But I met her then.
Yeah, you met her. You know her. Doesn't
I
matter.
know she's tall.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
she's Japanese.
she is. Married to an
But she
American.
speaks English fluently.
Yeah, she grew up part of her life. She spent a lot of her life in the U.S.
Yeah, I remember meeting her once, because that's how we started to talk. I think afterwards, I found out somehow or another you two were. She either told me that you were here, or you told me about one or the other.
It was
But
probably
that was
Italian.
while I was president. I think that was during that time.
Yeah, and she actually changed my life. I mean, I learned a lot through her. The breakup for me was heartbreaking, and we broke up. I came to Japan to live here after that. I'd already been planning to come. I had tried many things, and I failed a lot.
Okay.
And through failure, I learned to be stronger and better. I failed while I was here, badly. I failed
because of your girlfriend.
No. That was one failure, but what I mean is at TAC I failed.
How'd you fail at TAC?
Long story, but so after I moved to Japan, I struggled for a few years. I worked for City Club of Tokyo. That went down. I taught English for a little bit. I did some soft skills training. I got the job at TAC right after the earthquake. there were so many things that happened, and it was, oftentimes it may not have been, you could say, my fault, but I was the one who was running the event.
Yeah.
I was responsible for it, and I didn't take 100% responsibility from the beginning. That was my job.
I see.
And that's what I learned.
So you learned that from there.
Yeah, absolutely. Everything's your responsibility. It's
Right.
You know when it's not your responsibility? When you're not there.
Right.
If you're involved,
If not that, you're responsible.
yeah, if
regardless
you're
of what
involved
your
in
position
any
is.
way, it's your responsibility.
Yeah.
And that's, the military taught me
Mhm.
that as well. I didn't know that when I was a kid. I didn't take that lesson.
Okay.
You take responsibility for everything in your life, and if you don't, that's your failure. If there's a failure, it doesn't matter who's to blame. It's your failure,
There you go.
and you need to own it. And I learned that here. I became who I am now because of Tokyo American Club.
You really
Hard
think so?
lessons,
Huh?
absolutely 100%. I
We
owe
went through
everyone.
a lot of stuff. I know during my time it was very interesting, but you were always there. You always, whatever you took on when I was concerned, you made sure it happened.
Well, I learned that. Everything led up to that. I had some tough times. Nori Yamazaki and I went through a lot together. We became friends at the end. He believed in me, but we had some really tough times together. We banged heads a lot, and then we became allies. Somewhere along the line, I remember the day. It was over here. I left banquets left TAC because I didn't want to be typecast. I wanted to grow more. I wanted to learn more.
After 7 years.
After 7 years, almost 8. It was just before 8 years. I took a job with Weber Barbecue Company. At first, doing things that were more in line with what I've been doing, organizing events. There's some marketing and sales involved as well. Actually, a lot of sales, a lot of marketing. So I knew it would be a learning opportunity. I wanted to grow beyond what I had done here. I knew that it was time. There was nothing else I could learn. I didn't want to leave, actually. I really liked it here. I was comfortable. I liked working with Nori, who was really sad to see me leave. I liked working with Tony Callow, who was here at the time. We'd become close. I love the members. I had some members like yourself that I was really close to, and I would miss. And I knew that. But I knew I had no choice. I had to leave. I had to, in order to grow further, I had to make my mistakes. I was scared to death. So I went to Weber. First day, I sent 200 emails. I was so scared that I was going to not make sales. First 2 days, I should say. I literally sat down at the desk just going through all my business cards, and I sent 200 plus emails. In that first week, probably more than 300. During training as well. I left there, some issues with management there as well, and it started to go downhill. And we all knew the time was nigh, and that we had to make our plans. Eventually, they gave me a package, and I left. And it was wonderful. It was great. I was like, this is great. I learned. I was there for 3 years. Made some great friends some had left, others were leaving, and I knew that was coming. And I was approached by a film production company.
Where you are now.
Where I am now,
Okay.
named Cutter Studios. I did not think that would be something that would be a fit.
How long have you been there?
A year.
A year now.
Yeah. Last November, I joined on a quote-unquote trial basis to feel things out,
What were you supposed to do?
Business development. So I do sales and business development, strategy, etc. Some marketing at this point. It's a startup mentality. I joined. I liked the vision of the managing director, Ryan. I like the guy. I like working with him, and I believe that for the leadership team, I have a lot to offer that they don't have, which is the business side. And I joined for the first part of it, the end of the year. I wanted to keep having my freedom and just go to wine tastings and relax and stuff like that. But they convinced me to try it out. Come on. And they made it very easy for me. They said, look, we'll give you a trial start, and then if you like it, you can join at the beginning of the year. So I worked with them. I grew close to a couple people. They had a very young CFO, 27 years old, who's still there. Amazing kid, very bright, and some amazing creators. The creators there are, I would say, the best in the industry. I would only join in a sales situation for a company that I knew I could sell the product.
Okay.
Our product is the people. It's the creators and what they do. It's bar none. It's the best. I've never seen anything like what they do.
What are some of the things they do? What do they do?
So we do commercials. What we do
Here
in Japan and globally.
Okay.
We tell stories. That's what we do. We sell and tell stories. Now, those stories can be in the form of a commercial. They can be an internal company's reporting videos or films. It could be a movie, which we're in the process of developing. It could be a series, a documentary. We do it all. Our creators are also our directors, are also our editors. They have all the experience. They know how to do everything from the beginning to the end. Our company has a history of post-production. So we use that knowledge and experience to plan from the beginning so that everything is planned out and the chance of failure is near impossible. It guarantees success. And it's an amazing business. It's crazy business. I got myself into this a year ago, and I've always had an interest in film, and I even was a theater major in college at one point, and loved it. I just didn't want to be a waiter, so I got out of it. But that storytelling is something that not everyone can do well. Not everyone can, not only can they not tell the story well, they don't know how to show that to the audience so that the audience can understand it and engage with it. We do. We do. And all three of our creators are amazing. And they're all different. I'm still getting to know, I've studied their work. I've seen, the stuff that they've done, and I've worked with them personally, and I'm still getting to know what that means and how deep it is. One of our creators is interested, dance is her thing, so she incorporates dance and movement into everything she does. The other just likes to tell a good story. She likes people and telling people stories, right? And she engages with people, and it's beautiful. I've gotten more comments about that than anyone else. And then my boss, for all intents and purposes, he likes sound, and trying to immerse the person into the viewer into the story, right? He uses sound, he uses point of view and other things to do this. It's amazing. What he does is incredible. What they all do. So that's what I do now.
I want to thank you, Brian, for taking this time. It's been fantastic.
No problem.
Okay. I want to thank all of you for watching this podcast. Make sure you press like and subscribe. And never forget, it's all unknown, so continue to reach for the stars, because you're too blessed to be stressed.